We got Eric Bolander in the Fallen Forward Studios. Welcome, Eric Bolander.
Thanks for having me, man.
Man, anytime. Been wanting to have
For
you
good
out here
measure,
a long
I
time.
parked my Chevy right behind you for this. That way it's
It's
in
okay.
view there.
I can feel the tension building already. It's like it's
No, this is a great old truck, man. It's killer.
I like old Chevys too, but
Yeah,
yours is brand
I like
new.
old Fords, old
Yours is a
Chevys.
new one.
It's newer, yeah. It ain't. They don't build them like.
It don't smell like gas when you drive it, does it?
No. I don't have a headache when I'm going down the road either.
Well, Eric, for people that don't know Eric Bolander, make sure you check his music out. Number one, but great singer-songwriter from Central Kentucky.
Thank you.
He and I have been friends for a few years now, probably more than a few, several.
Yeah.
And
Met you at Arthur's barn, I think.
That was the first time.
Was it? Was that the first time?
I knew you before that, but I think maybe I'd seen you across the room at the Burl one time or two. When
Right
you were playing the
on.
show.
Yeah, right on.
And I was
the
like,
first time we met and actually chatted a little bit.
I put my arm around you, like, hey, can I get a picture with you?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, come on. You didn't know me from Adam, but that's the way it goes, man. And I feel like
We always knew each other. We just had to cross paths yet.
we did. We did. We've crossed paths several times now, and I wanted to get you in here, man, and get your story, man. Like, so how long you been doing music?
Well, I mean, I started like playing live. I was a little bit older. I was in my mid 20s, so doing covers and stuff, rock music, and then part of that band started a metal band, and that was my first original band. The first time I was writing music and some vocal melodies and lyrics and all that. So, and then moved forward from that into Alcatraz Shakedown.
Your original band, did it have any kind of music out that people can listen to?
Well, I've been I've been wanting to put it out on streaming. I just keep getting busy, but we do have 2 songs on YouTube. The band's called Modern Day Relic.
Modern Day Relic. I'm gonna check that out.
It's pretty heavy. We used to cover Kill Switch Engage, End of Heartache, if you know that song.
I'm not familiar with it.
But so Ben Buck, who plays drums with me now, he was in that band. He sang backup and played drums. And then Steven Stump was also in that band, and he and I started a rock and roll band, Alcatraz Shakedown. And we don't really play much anymore, but I don't consider us not a band, but
Yeah, that's a.
but nonetheless, that was kind of my sort of more recent diving into songwriting and building out songs and recording and playing live and stuff. And then when I started doing my solo stuff, I recorded my first EP with John Ferguson, who's now in the band.
Okay.
So at the time I lived across the street from him, became friends, obviously, kicked off a musical friendship as well, but he recorded that for me, and then now that brings me to this,
How was
where I'm at now. But
how was the transition between going from, it sounds like a heavy band,
sure,
into
yeah,
Alcatraz Shakedown's a rock and roll band,
yeah,
and then into the Americana kind of country scene?
I think for fans who aren't necessarily musicians and haven't networked with musicians in that realm or in that side of things, don't realize how many people that are in this genre that have musical background in heavier music.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting for sure. And I have, early on I had some old metal buddies who were fans of my solo music, and going back to that first question, though, I didn't mention it was like early 2000s. So
Early 2000s.
So you asked me how long and how I got into it, but the how long part's coming up on 20 years, I reckon.
Okay.
Something like that. But
So a good chunk of your life. What was some of your early influences in leading into your music career at that point?
So I think with the solo stuff, I always say solo stuff. Most people just know me by Eric Bolander music, but with the Americana stuff, my biggest influences were by far Dallas Green, City and Color. He's also in a metal band called Alexis on Fire. His first EP as City and Color, most of those lyrics are about touring with his metal band, and I just sort of connected with the fact I didn't tour with the metal band, but just having that background. Mm-hmm. And I really connected with that after I learned that about him too. And then John Moreland is an absolute humongous influence. And then oddly enough, Devils and Dust record and title track specifically from Springsteen.
Yeah.
I do love, Bruce's catalog, all of it, even the poppy stuff.
I do too, man.
However, that record, man, that hit me. Like, I've always liked emotional music. That's kind of the connection, I think, with heavier music. Heavy music and lyrics and melody is always, lyrically heavy as well.
Yeah.
Like, it's the content's going to be dealing with some pretty serious stuff, and heavy content, you could say, even. So I think that's probably kind of how I landed on being influenced by some of that music, and that record by Bruce Springsteen is pretty heavy,
I can definitely hear now that you say that, I can definitely hear in your music the influences of John Moreland.
Yeah, sure, man.
And
I've had a few people, like, reviews or like publications or something, mention a connection with John Moreland, and that's a big honor to me, because I respect him very highly. I've got to meet him a couple times. That was super cool, and yeah, I love what he does, and I love how he experiments.
Yeah, I've never actually been to one of his shows. I came close to it one time at the Burl.
Right on.
Now, you're also a teacher.
Yeah,
I'm
a visual art teacher.
Visual art teacher.
I teach at Henry Clay High School in Lexington, and this is my 19th year. I'm getting old.
So around the same time you started a music career, you started...
Yeah, so I was playing music, and gosh, when I started teaching, I was coaching football. I was still in the National Guard at the time. I was just doing all the things, But I was playing music, like guitar and learning guitar. I'd started playing guitar freshman year of college. I was 18. My best friend Kev showed me some chords, and then the rest is history, But anyway, I hadn't really sang much. I didn't have confidence of singing. I didn't sing, and when I was a kid, I didn't really go to church a lot, so I wasn't singing in a choir. I didn't come up singing, on my own. My mom said I could sing, but everybody's mom says they could sing, but I just never had that confidence. I did have choir senior year, but that's because my high school girlfriend was in choir. I was like, oh, I'll take this class. And then I get in there and I actually have to sing, So I kind of knew I could sing a little bit then, I was learning a little bit about it. But then freshman year, Morehead State, before I moved to Lexington, UK, I went to Morehead for a year. And when I was learning to play guitar, I learned that I had an ear for it. I could pick up on pitch.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, didn't even know that was the word for it, but I could hear the notes and how they fit. And I would play kind of like some slow songs that had a simple 3 or 4 chord progression, or I'd play like a lot of hip hop music because it's usually simple 3 to 4 progression the entire song. And I would just sit and noodle along with it until I found notes that worked. I had no idea what scale I was playing or any of that. So I'm all ear taught. I wish I'd took like band or orchestra or something in high school, and really learned how to read music or pay attention in choir class. But yeah, I was learning that back when I was playing guitar. But as far as singing, that was like my mid-20s. I put together a band that 3 of the members end up being the modern day Relic band, and then we played a bunch of 90s rock covers. That's when I was a teenager. Both of us, that 90s alternative grunge and rock.
I didn't realize how much that influenced me until years later. And
yeah,
it's interesting. Something that's happening now is momentum that is built up to create the Americana scene, and now it's being introspective and being like, okay, how did we get here? A lot of the roots were in that era of grunge and heavy metal.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be any surprise. It's just hard to kind of put yourself back to where the influences began while you're in it.
Yeah.
But if you look at, the outlaw country movement, when was that, 70s-ish? Rolling into the 80s, right? And you have to look at what they were listening to when they were our age from our influences. So what were they listening to as a teenager? And looking at that kind of thing. And, Don Darrell of Pantera always said that Ted Nugent was his favorite guitarist. Things like that. Or Angus Young of AC/DC, mentions Chuck Berry, things like that. Like when you really dive into that, artists around our age are going to say things, people like that we're talking about.
Yeah,
that's going to sound a lot different. And it's like, well, when I was a teenager, for me, I wasn't listening to bluegrass, even though I was around it my whole life. I did grow up in Eastern Kentucky, and you know, not far from Poppy Mountain and, you know, music festival. And we had a, you know, sorghum festival out close to my aunt's house and, you know, in Lewis County and every fall. And for a few years, I remember doing that kind of stuff, but I didn't appreciate it when I was a teenager. I was like, oh, that's old people music, you know? So for me, like those years, definitely the rock. I mean, Nirvana obviously was huge. It was a huge wave, and Pearl Jam, and I dug those bands, but Alice in Chains and Soundgarden were my two favorite bands of that period while I was living that period of time, you know?
Yeah.
And so early to mid 90s and late 90s, graduated high school. But there's no doubt that stuff's in there. But then picking up an acoustic guitar and writing my own songs, I really started leaning back into some of my mom and dad's music, you know. And Dad's favorite singer ever was Don Williams. He'd always, you know, every time you'd hear Don Williams, you're like, Eric, that's real music, you know. And that you started thinking back to that as a younger adult, trying to write music, even though I was writing and playing metal music, I was listening to some of the older country stuff and like getting kind of back into that.
What was it? Was it more of a melody that drove you back to that, or was it based on lyrics only?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because
I would say
listened
for
to
me,
some old records in my grandpa's. I still got I got a lot of his records, and some of those old timers, man, they had a lot of they had things to say.
It was true.
It wasn't all about the melody, because a lot of those melodies are kind of cookie cutter back in the day.
Sure, but, they did a lot of similar, you know, I mean, from the rhythm section to the progressions and things. I guess probably the content, and then, you know, there's some strong singers, man. You know, Don Williams sounded like, I don't know, sounded like Vanilla Ice Cream singing. It's just some of the smoothest stuff. Then you got Conway Twitty getting everybody pregnant just to listen to him. You know what I mean? You got like Dolly Parton, good Lord, just screaming off a mountaintop. And it just sounds like angels singing. And Loretta Lynn is just sounds like cornbread. Just, you know what I mean? Like it's just so important and so great. And like I feel like probably the voices, and then the lyrics, definitely the content. Some of the songs, then some of it's just that voice, man. They could sing just hymns or Christmas songs or Happy Birthday, you know. Could you imagine if Dolly Parton was sitting in here singing Happy Birthday? I mean, come on now. That'd be amazing. Things like that. Exactly. So I would say voices really. I know that wasn't one of the options, but I'd say that's probably why. It was just, I didn't appreciate it. I was like, oh, that's old people music, right? When I was a teen. And then getting back into it in my 20s and early 30s, it really struck a nerve. So then I had that going on, and by the time I was kind of picking up an acoustic and writing my own stuff, some of that bled back in, you know? Not necessarily with intention, but maybe a little intention, but mostly just, I think it just creeps back in, and you're influenced by what you're listening to now and before, and nostalgia and all those things that we've mentioned already.
And I would imagine any of those people that you mentioned, if they were getting interviewed and had the same exact questions, they would say the same or something similar.
Sure.
We all, you know, I mean, it's a natural thing to be influenced.
Hank Sr. was probably how that's later on their list, maybe, you know, or the Beatles, and I mean, you got all kinds of stuff that were happening a couple decades prior to some of the country artists we mentioned.
And so you've been doing music for over about 20 years or so. You've seen a lot of trends come and go. You've seen a lot of things, even in your own music. You've seen a lot of changes. Part of the show is like how we get over maybe issues or problems that we've had, and how we restore ourselves. And I know as a singer-songwriter, sometimes you can get caught up in questioning what you're putting out there, how valuable people view it. Or you know, and maybe there's those times where we're like, man, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. You know, I think every artist goes through that.
Every single one.
What is it when you if you ever feel like that? What is it that kind of helps to jumpstart you back?
Shoo boy, it's like a coping mechanism almost. I think, you know, it's taken a lot of work. It's not something that I read or just figured out, or someone told me to do and I did it and it was cool. Like, for me, it's there's no escaping experience of getting to a point where you can be content. I've always resented the idea of contentment. I've always been a go-get kind of person. I've always been, hey, I'm going to go, 100 miles an hour at this thing. All the analogies, burn your candle at both ends, all the things. I've been that person. My dad was that person, just with always working and doing side jobs, as a carpenter and things like that, and just always piddling around and at it, right? So for me, it's been art and music and stuff around the house, or just, I always have that concept of like, man, I need to be accomplishing something. Then I'll sit around and be lazy and watch TV for 4 hours. And then I'll feel bad about sitting around being lazy and relaxing for 4 hours. It's like, what kind of messed up person thinks that, like, feels bad for, like, just relaxing?
It's the artist, man.
So, and I remember the first time I heard, this is in college years, early 20s. And the first time I heard about there are people that don't have an inner voice, that they can just lay here, close their eyes, and then it's just like nothing. Like, I was so blown away by that existing, because it's not just artists, but artists for sure have a very busy mind. So calming that, I've just had years of noticing what helps me. Some things are a little more intentional, like being around a body of water helps me, whether you're fishing. I don't fish often, but I try to get around to it sometimes. Or if you get a chance to go to a beach in the summer, or if you just go to a lake, or now I live out in the country a little bit in Richmond, where there's a pond. It's kind of nice sitting outside on my back porch. There's a pond out there, and it can calm my nerves and settle me. My daughter has been a huge big part of that.
She's at a lot of your shows, like, coming up. When I first started being a fan,
my loafing buddy.
Like, she was maybe a little baby at the time.
She
totally kind of in the
so she's been all kinds of places with me. She's been at the Burrowmore, and some people watching this probably, but being with her, not always. I mean, you're a parent, your kids get on your nerves, they get on your skin. It happens, but for the most part, though, like, just hanging out with her. She wants to cuddle with me and watch cartoons or something, or we play a game, or do a puzzle, or paint, do a little art project, like things like that really calms me down. And it's not just about calming me down, it's also about taking my mind off the things that are just absolutely killing me. Analytics.
So quietening
all that. Quietening
that voice in your mind for a while.
Yeah, it's not so much getting rid of it. Like, I accepted years ago, I will not get rid of it. I will not get rid of that, whatever you want to call it, just hanging over you. And dealing with it, not trying to get rid of it, but dealing with it. Picking moments where I'm like, man, I'm gonna let this, slide off my shoulder and just focus on what I'm working on right now. Or I just try to write music. Writing music sometimes does that for me. Sometimes it makes it worse, but more times than not, sitting down and writing, whether it's out of keys, which I don't play keys, but I can, like, kind of hum around and find some chords I like, or picking around on my acoustic, and recent for me, the last couple of years, my girlfriend, like, we really have a good relationship where we're just good friends and enjoy each other's company, and it's kind of nice that, like, she can nowadays, she can pick up on if I'm in that headspace, and just a little touch, or just
kind
a
of
little
grounds you a little bit.
Yeah, and then bring me back out of it, like, whew,
Yeah.
And any younger or less experienced musician or songwriter, anybody watching this or listening or anything, man, find those moments and capitalize on those moments, because I assure you, everyone that you see that's just hitting the big have had these moments. Red Clay Strays, every single one of those band members have done the same thing that we just talked about. And matter of fact, they probably still do occasionally.
Absolutely.
And you'd be like, how,
Yeah.
Nolan Taylor, I message him pretty often. He's a bud. Like, he's a good dude, but he goes through his stuff too. And I ain't trying to put anybody's dirty laundry out there. I just mean that you think of, like, if you're in this region that we play with and you cross paths with those two bands, or even more than that, you name them, I guarantee you they went through this.
Yeah.
And
I think it's it's a mistake for people to look from the outside at an artist and think they know everything about them and say that, oh, they're doing great, because you can make something look as great as you want to, but the part of being the challenge of being an artist is, especially early on, until you have a team of people that worry about all the visuals, you know, is the emotional side of things and the mental state, because we want to portray that emotion to people so they react to 100%. Something. But it's a very delicate balance of having good mental health.
Even back to that point, like, you know, having the understanding that, I don't want to just say like life's not fair, but lack of better words, life isn't fair. You know, we can hate or love Oliver Anthony all we want, or whoever else that seemingly went, you know, viral and then now they're semi-famous. Well, you know, how long had they been working on their craft? You know, no different than us. And I'm not taking up for anybody or putting anybody down, regardless of who it is. You just name somebody. You know, and I mean,
you don't always know what
you don't know. And also, like, man, I mean, the luck part of it doesn't hit unless you're trying to be on that path anyway. You know, you're not going to find a lucky arrowhead unless you're out walking around in the dirt. You know what I mean? Like, I think, I mean, I also see the other side of it too. Like, you know, buddies like Justin Wells, man, like, he's incredible. He's one of the best in our region, in my opinion. Songwriter, performer. His shows is undeniable. He owns the stage. Why is he not, you know, selling this many tickets? Well, I think that way about it too. And many friends. Nicholas Jamerson should be, you know, selling out theaters. You know, I mean, Abby Hamilton. I mean, why, and good Lord, she played the Grand Ole Opry. And she's still not on the level that most of us would agree that she deserves to be on. So, you know, Chelsea Nolan, and I mean, guys, I can sit here, this could be the whole podcast, just list Kentucky artists I know or regional artists I know that are deserving. So, I mean, I feel like being able to, like, back to what I said, the experience, there is absolutely no supplement for experience. So I've got enough years under my belt now to have become friends with some folks and see some of that behind the scenes. Because one thing you have to remember, I think, as a younger or less experienced artist, greener, I guess I should say. But anyway, something you need to remember is that the social media aspect, while important, it's a highlight reel. It's a highlight reel. And sure, you could watch that highlight reel as a motivator. But when you start slipping over into the envy and the just jealousy part of that's when you get in your own head, be like, well, I'm as good as them, why am I not playing this? Or, but they got that opportunity over me. It's like, well, dude, they've been doing this way less years than me. Why are they getting this opportunity? Why are they playing that festival? I've never played that festival before. I should be on that festival. And then you can get in that, and maybe those statements aren't 100% false, just taken for what they are, but they're a bad sort of mindset to be in. And they're not going to make friends for you, and they're not going to be good for networking and the thing that actually grows your following, that actually grows your exposure and your opportunities. And keeping away from that, I think, is best advice I can ever give somebody.
It's true, man. It's true. Like, and what we put out there is typically what we get. If we put out negativity all the time, we're going to get that. It's a fact of the universe, man. Like, the happier we can be for people, the more happiness comes into our life.
I'll tell you one thing I've said, the way I've said it for a long time now. Don't burn a bridge that either A, you would like to go back over, possibly, or B, you would want your friends to come across.
I like that.
And if it's, you know, morally driven, burn it. You know, somebody's, you know, sexist or racist, homophobic, something that it's like just horrible, and you know that, then sure, burn that bridge. But if it's about business, if it's about money, you know, what, hospitality or slot, or, man, leave it alone. Don't work with them anymore. You don't have to post about it.
Right.
You just not work with that business anymore. And your circle, make sure that your circle knows, hey, I don't work with those folks, and they did this or that. Yeah. And I know there's going to be people hear that, and they wholeheartedly disagree. I've spoke to some friends who wholeheartedly disagree with me. But unless it's that, I'll say it this way. If somebody crosses the line that you've drawn, then burn the bridge. But that line, for some people, is 50 feet away. Mm-hmm. Like, that's too far. They shorted you money. Don't work with them again. $100 ain't worth optics. $100 ain't worth negative optics. Because I've known 2 artists specifically that got taken off of a consideration list because of some bullshit argument that happened, and they blew it up on social media. 2 different people, not even related to each other or connected. For a fact. And that's just 2. How many people are around there that are losing opportunities because they decide, nobody's going to see somebody calling somebody out for being inappropriate and be like, oh, that's negative. No, like, screw that people. Screw those people that are being inappropriate in whatever form. But if it's the business side of things, there's just, it's going to come to head.
Yeah.
That place or that person or that venue or that event, it's not going to keep running with or without the social media blast. And I'm not that, like, I don't want to, like, put down anyone who's been that way, because that's not fair either. That's not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. That's just a friendly advice of, like, that is not going to help your position. That is not going to get the positive, like, connection that you think maybe it will. It's going to get the initial pats on the back, because you're probably right. People are probably like, screw that. That sucks. I mean, you're probably not wrong when you're posting that.
Yeah.
Most likely. But being able to learn to kind of walk away from a situation, not quietly, but just walking away from it and washing your hands of it, moving on down the road, I think is important. And that's like I said, that is completely on me. It's my opinion.
It's very wise advice. And to anybody out there that comes across this, and you're an up-and-coming artist, maybe you're just in the scene. How we portray ourselves online does matter. It can cause you to lose out on a job, on a gig, or a festival.
And like I said, if it's morally driven, man, go for it. Nobody needs that. Nobody needs those kind of people working in anything, let alone this industry. But if it's business, man, let business be business. And I think that, and then when you reach out to friends or to try to open a show or get on a bill together, and man, how fast you can get busy, and that thing just slides by, or it just doesn't pan out for 2 years, or things like that. Be patient with that. I remember being younger, just getting so mad, not like voicing it necessarily, but just be aggravated, that somebody didn't get back to me about something. It's most likely non-intentional. It's most likely just the nature of the business of moving down the road and getting this booked here, getting that lined up, getting these days lined up. Can my band do this day? Oh, they can't do that one. Like all the things you're juggling behind the scenes. I think as a less experienced musician, I didn't have the mindset of being patient with that and realizing it was like it had nothing to do with me specifically. It just had to do with whatever reasons,
It's a lot of being right place, right time situation too.
Yeah, I'm always super humbled and like, just it's a huge compliment. Somebody's like, hey man, if there's opportunity, I'd love to open a show for you. Like I'm flattered every single time, if it's an email or message or a phone call and I'm always like, hey, I got kind of a running list of people I love to ask for bills, but it's one of those things where it's like, well, what lines up, what fits, what makes sense, and then.
And how many times has something not worked out and it kind of disappoints you, but then something immediately opens back up?
Like, that's true too.
It's like, I like
one door closes,
better,
one door opens, kind of.
It's true.
Yeah, and that's on your own kind of like trying to get into stuff too. That's on that side of things, the booking side of things.
So in conclusion, we're about 30-minute mark.
All right.
That's about the mark where it's hard to upload.
All right. We're rolling into it.
And we got some good lighting. So Eric Bolander, you've got some great music out. I want everybody to take the time, go over Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your music. Make sure you support everything Eric Bolander's doing. he represents Central Kentucky and what this music scene is like right now. And what does the future hold for you? Like, what are some hopes and dreams and kind of bucket list shows you would like to do?
Oh man, well, coming up, I've got a record. We're finishing the end of February. Well, tracking and stuff. We're almost done. I'll probably have another single coming out this summer or something.
Okay.
From that record, and then so that's kind of the immediate future. I've got some shows and a couple festivals I haven't announced yet coming up. They'll be on my website. It's just ericbolander.com.
ericbolander.com.
But some bucket lists, man. I think same as a lot of people around here for sure, in our genre at least. But Red Rocks and the Ryman. I mean,
absolutely.
That would be,
yeah.
You know.
What about a show with John Moreland? Have you done one of those yet?
I have played with John Moreland, but not like just him.
I think you guys go on the road together. It'd be badass.
I would love that. The first Laurel Cove that was moved inside because of weather. Okay. It was the very first Laurel Cove. He was the headliner for the day that I played, so I got to meet him thanks to my friend Alexis Faye.
Yeah, that's
She
cool.
introduced me, and then I got his signature on my guitar or my acoustic. Yeah, so that was great. So I did get to play it, and then I met him when he played the Burl. It was a tough show for him. He was solo, and the crowd was half of them were pretty unruly, but so he kind of let his frustrations get to him for sure. But
it'll happen.
But up until then, it was good. Yeah, and I got to talk to him afterwards, and he was pretty regrettable for getting upset on stage, visibly upset, kind of just leaving the stage. But man, it's tough sometimes. Yeah. Solo acoustic, I've played that room a few times solo acoustic with a big crowd.
People's excitement gets to them.
Yeah, sure.
Get a few drinks in you.
But it was cool to catch up, and he remembered me. That was cool. It kind of geeked me out. I don't think he realizes when people are starstruck around him, but I'm definitely starstruck around that guy because he's just this epic person. I mean, he's big in stature, but his voice and his songs are bigger than any
tear me up
human
faster
can
than
be.
anybody, man.
His lyrics. His song 3:59 a.m. That is still to this date my favorite song of his. But one of my favorite lyrics is I'll probably screw it up. It's something like, "I'm sorry, I seemed a little overwhelmed. I'm thirsty, but the holy keep pissing in my well."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you son of a good.
Yeah.
And then you get mad at him too, though. You're like, I'll never be that good.
There's a couple of songs that like bring tears to my eyes as soon as I even think about them, and that's one of them, man. Like it's so real, it's so raw.
Yeah.
It means so much, man. And all the best to you, man. I appreciate you coming in the Falling Forward studio.
This is killer. I love
truck,
it,
man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
This thing is just gonna.
I played a couple songs, so that's gonna be part of it, right?
And what are the two songs that you played?
I did Strawberry Moon and One More Ride, and that's two singles that are off this new record coming up.
So if you're coming across this video first, make sure you go down on the list and look for Eric Bolander live on YouTube. Right on the sidewalk right here.
Yeah, right next to the Ford.
Yeah, right in front of the house.
Thank
you. Make sure you like, subscribe, share your friends, make a comment. Anybody that that you'd like to see interviewed in the truck, let me know. But keep in touch, and we'll see you down the road.